board meeting of the Shawnee Mission School District Board of Education. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please rise with me and we say the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I'll seek a motion to adopt.
So move, Goodburn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Hembry.
Thank you, Ms. Hembry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our special meeting on August 23rd. I'll seek a motion to approve.
So move, Borgman.
Thank you, Ms. Borgman. Is there a second?
Second, Guy.
Thank you, Reverend Guy. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Our next item is the approval of the minutes from the special public comment meeting on August 23rd. I'll seek a motion to approve.
Move approval, Sinclair.
And second?
Second, Goodburn.
Thank you, Ms. Goodburn. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Our next item is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on August 23rd. I'll seek a motion.
So move, Stratton.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Is there a second?
Goodburn, second.
Thank you, Ms. Goodburn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The next item is the approval of the minutes from the special meeting on September 13th. I'll seek a motion.
Move approval, Sinclair.
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair. Is there a second?
Second, Borgman.
Thank you, Ms. Borgman. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And then the next item is the approval of the minutes from the special public comment meeting on September 13th. I'll seek a motion.
Move approval, Hembry.
Thank you, Ms. Hembry. Is there a second?
Second, Guy.
Thank you, Reverend Guy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And then finally, the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on September 13th. I'll seek a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Is there a second?
Second, Hembry.
Thank you, Ms. Hembry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is the Superintendent Report, and I am excited to turn it over to Dr. Hubbard for her report this evening.
Thanks, President Owsley. I have a lot of things to share tonight, so a lot of great things happening. But I'm going to start with our Horizon nominees. Kira Staley, a third grade teacher at Marion Park, and Kristen Carrillo, a special education teacher at Shawnee Mission West High School, are the SMSD nominees for the Kansas Horizon Award. This is a state recognition for first-year teachers who perform in a way that distinguishes them as outstanding. Each district is able to select one elementary and one secondary teacher to be considered for the State Horizon Award. Congratulations to Kira and Kristen. We're so proud of the work that they're doing and their beginning careers in the Shawnee Mission School District. So I'm also grateful to share that our student advisory group and our elementary and secondary faculty advisory groups kicked off their work for this school year. These groups joined me and several leadership team members for discussion on ways that we can continue to improve our schools. Each one of these gatherings provided us with very helpful ideas and great conversation. We talked about everything from school culture, rules, policies, to furniture and facilities and opportunities available for students. I'm a firm believer that we are stronger when we all stick together, and this was just such a great example of that. I appreciate everyone who is taking the time to get together and share their thoughts and collaborate in these advisory groups. We are proud to recognize the Shawnee Mission seniors named semifinalists in the 2022 National Merit Scholar Program. These students took the 2020 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test, which served as an initial screen. These semifinalists represent less than 1% of the United States high school seniors. We will include a link in the recap to list all of the students honored, and we will also be honoring them in October at a reception. So congratulations to our semifinalists. The Kansas Board of Regents honored Shawnee Mission East in the inaugural Kansas FAFSA Challenge. This is a recognition for high schools in Kansas that had the highest percentage of students to complete the FAFSA, or had the largest increase in FAFSA completion. Shawnee Mission East was the 6A school in Kansas with the highest completion rate. The Board of Regents stated that students who complete the FAFSA are more likely to enroll in college, and that they are grateful to the parents, counselors, students, teachers, and administrators who helped students complete this step. So thank you for everyone to prepare our students for college and careers. We are very excited because tomorrow morning is the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation Fall Breakfast. The virtual event kicks off at 7:30. The theme is Unlimited Possibilities, and I know that this event is going to leave everyone inspired with stories highlighting all the students and staff are accomplishing. We'll include a link in the recap for those who would like to make a reservation to watch the event and support the foundation. We want to take a moment to recognize some special guests this evening. We are so grateful to the Baptist Trinity Lutheran Legacy Foundation, who provided $18,750 to purchase hypochlorous acid generators. When Kansas schools were closed in March of 2020, SMSD began planning for the safe reopening of our classrooms, with all departments and custodians working especially tirelessly towards full in-person learning for all students. The CDC laid out specific recommendations for cleaning and disinfection of schools and classrooms to include highly touched surfaces and objects such as drinking fountains, sink and door handles, desktops, and handrails. The purchase of 17 acid generators with BTLLF grant funds substantially increased the district's ability to clean and disinfect schools and classrooms in a non-toxic, non-corrosive, and cost-effective manner. I'd like to invite our guests to join me at the front of the room so we can formally thank them for the ways that they have supported our staff and students. So the next thing, we are glad to bring to you an exciting update on the logo transition process at Shawnee Mission North High School. I want to walk you through the process we've been going through. Terry, can you flip the slide for me? So January 25th, 2021. The timeline's not in there? You don't have a slide of the timeline? Okay, then hold on for a second. But thank you. In January of 2021, the board approved policy ACA regarding school mascots. So lots of action took place between January and July, and in July there was an initial meeting held with the DLR group to review the design process and the goals. August and September, the building administration had numerous draft reviews with DLR. They gathered feedback from student, staff, site council, and building and district leadership. And on September 23rd, the final brand logo was chosen by the school and presented to the superintendent. And tonight, we are here to present the final logo to the Board of Education. I just want to thank Dave Ewers for his time and effort. He worked tirelessly with the DLR group and also with so many groups of stakeholders to ensure that they got it right, and they're excited about this logo. And you're really going to see a brief drawing of the logo tonight, but they're going to continue to work, and they'll have a full-blown template of the logo, so that what we would see on uniforms or even stationery, things like that. DLR group will be presenting all of that to us in the next several weeks. But because so many people had feedback on several drafts, it was important to Shawnee Mission North to be able to get it out there so that they could start having the conversations with different groups and organizations about it. And Mr. Ewers is here, as well as I love the North Bison shirts in the front row. So thank you all for joining us. And at this time, I'm going to share the logo. Oh, the timeline. Oh, I thought the timeline was in there, but that's all right. Now the logo. So I'm going to ask Mr. Ewers if you would like to say anything, or any of the students would like to say anything about either the logo, the process moving forward, or just how the feedback process that you all went through. Sure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hubbard. It was a great process working with DLR. They were outstanding in taking our feedback, going through several revisions. The feedback from the students and our building leadership team and our site council was outstanding. And in the end, we felt that the logo and brand that we're going with is going to be a very iconic brand. It's going to be something that's synonymous with Shawnee Mission North and success for years on end. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And if the kiddos want to say anything, I'd love for them to come up and talk about their role in the process if they would like to.
We would love to hear from one of you at least. Anybody?
You'll get extra credit in one of your classes.
Please have it be AP Physics.
I don't know if I can do that.
Okay, well, my name is Samantha Morinville, and I am currently a senior at Shawnee Mission North High School. I serve as senior class president, and it was just a great opportunity being able to give feedback on the Bison logos. I know a lot of us enjoyed doing that, and it was just nice to just give constructive feedback and criticism to something like this. And I'm just really happy to just like finally have this logo and finally get it on a t-shirt so we can start selling them and buying them. So thank you. And yeah, I know that the North community will also love it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Any other takers? All right, well, thank you all so much for joining us. And then the last part of the superintendent's report is I want to give just a quick update on field trips and building visitors in regards to our mitigation plan. So tonight we're sharing, excuse me, 2 updates on our guidance for fall events during the school year. Just want to remind you the mitigation plan says that both field trips and visitors will be revisited as we continue to look at the numbers. And so for now, the first thing that we're going to talk about is visitors allowed to the school building. So we will allow direct service providers from partner organizations access to the school building to provide essential educational services. Examples of those include Johnson County Mental Health, university teaching supervisors, and testing proctors as necessary. We will continue the practice that most outside guests are not allowed past the office when students are on site during the regular school hours. Another change to note is that field trips to non-SMSD facilities will be considered. Requests can be made by the building principal to elementary and secondary directors for consideration. Keeping our schools open and safe continues to be our top priority, and we thank everyone for keeping SMSD strong and for their work to keep students in school. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hubbard. The next item on our agenda are board reports. I know we have the Education Foundation breakfast tomorrow morning, and Ms. Embry is probably going to give us some exciting encouragement to attend. So I'll
That's
turn it
exactly
over to
right.
her.
Tomorrow morning at 7:30 will be the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation breakfast. It'll be held virtually this year. For folks who haven't been before, it's a really good celebration of the beginning of the school year. I think the foundation also does a really, really nice job of highlighting specific students and educators. It is a really great showcase for everything that Shawnee Mission School District is. So even though it will not be held in person this year, it will still check all of those boxes of showing off our students and teachers. And it'll be Dr. Hubbard's first breakfast as superintendent. So she'll be speaking in particular with, I think, a Q&A with some students. So go to smef.org if you want to sign up, and you'll actually get a video link tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Reverend Guy, do you have an update for us from the KASB Board of Directors?
I do. Ms. Borgman, did you have a SMAC update?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I thought you didn't.
Yep.
I will turn it over to you. I will turn
Yes,
it over
thank
to
you.
you, Ms. Borgman. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Reverend Guy. So thanks to SMAC for all you do for our district. We're grateful for you and just your service to our kids and our district. Couple quick updates. So the SMAC Clothing Exchange Fall Changeover is on Thursday from 10 until noon, and then 4 to 6 p.m. So volunteers are needed for this event. So NHS students, if you need some hours, this would be a good service event for you. And then SMAC PTA is sponsoring the Read Across SMSD program for the month of November. And this is 2 books per school, including Horizons and the Early Childhood Center. So thanks once again to SMAC for all you do for our district.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Sorry about that. Okay, and Reverend Guy.
I just want to remind everybody the KASB annual conference is coming up in early November, and you can still register for that if you're not. They also have published the list of breakout sessions, and our own President Owsley will be co-presenting with Chief Barnes about the process we just heard Dr. Hubbard talk about, the change of our mascot policy and the process and procedures, and just how we did all of that as a community to maybe encourage and inspire some other districts to take a look at their mascot policies as well. So that's one of many wonderful breakout workshops you could attend at the KASB conference. That's all.
Thank you. Dr. Sinclair, do you have an update for us from the Legislative Committee?
The Legislative Committee will reconvene again in November. Two offshoots of that committee. Number one, I believe, is that there will be some roundtables, if not virtual roundtables. I look back at Reverend Guy if there's been any further discussion about that. But so there was some discussion about virtual roundtables of getting impact of legislative priorities for this for the session. And then the other piece is an outgrowth of this committee, which is the Kansas Advocacy Network, and KASB has been trying to strengthen and develop relations between school board and legislators, so those conversations continue throughout the year. And so Mr. Stratton and I both submitted an application, and there was the first virtual meeting of those groups across the state to be part of that Kansas Advocacy Network. So really it was just an orientation conversation. And that's it.
Well, and thank you both, you and Mr. Stratton, for signing up for that. It's appreciated. The Policy Review Committee, Ms. Goodburn, do you have an update for us?
I don't have an update.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Stratton, Finance and Facilities, your meeting?
Just a reminder, our meeting is next month, in the month of October.
Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is the Board Financial Report, and we will turn it over to Dr. Hubbard and Mr. Knapp.
Turn it over to Mr. Knapp.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Board. So the Board Financial Report is, as of August 31st, is attached to the Board docs for your review. I wanted to mention two things tonight. The first thing is our natural gas bill. We have reached a settlement agreement with Symmetry Energy Solution to pay the February 2021 outstanding natural gas bill. That's an action item on the board agenda tonight, later on in 7.03 for your consideration. Just to recall the process, this is from Winter Storm Uri. It's hard to remember that when it's 91 degrees outside. But it originally started out at $1.6 million, and then through a contract adjustment by Symmetry, they reduced it to $675,000, and then we hired the services of James Zakura with Smitham and Zakura to reach a mutual resolution with Symmetry, and he was successful. So the bill now is $337,577, and that's what the amount is for the settlement that's later on in your action item. The second thing I wanted to mention was last Monday, September 20th, is the official count day in the state of Kansas. That's how we get our funding. Our head count number was 26,534 students. This is 422 more than last year, but it's about 588 less than what we projected. For funding purposes, the head count enrollment is based on the hire of 2 prior years. So the head count is still based on 2019-20 school year. So there will not be an impact on the head count FTE for this year on our budget. However, the weighted FTE is based on the current year count. So we are gathering that information. We have to submit that by October 8th. That's called the Superintendent's Organization Report. We submit that by October 8th. KSDE will come out and audit us. And once they audit that, those numbers, then I can present it to the board where we're at, and that will have an impact on our funding for this year. They will come in less than our projections. And so that's my report for tonight, and I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
Are there questions for Mr. Knapp? Oh, Mr. Stratton.
In the revenue and expenses under the federal, I was just curious about the flow of funds for ESSER 2, because we're incurring costs there, but it doesn't look like the funds are coming in at the same pace that we're incurring the costs.
We draw those down on a monthly basis, and there's usually a month delay.
Okay.
But we'll start drawing down larger chunks because the salaries are now coming on. The payroll starts September 20th.
Great, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is a board discussion item. This is so we can have a conversation about potentially the pros and cons of requirements for staff vaccinations. I'm just going to moderate the discussion and hopefully we can have an opportunity to answer questions and to get additional information. There are two examples of staff vaccination requirements that we can look at. Kansas City, Missouri Public School District, and then the St. Louis, Missouri Public School District. Kansas City, Missouri did an opt-out vaccination requirement, and then St. Louis did not provide the opt-out. So if you were not going to be vaccinated, you had to apply for a medical exemption or a religious exemption. It's my understanding that there are logistics to deal with on either option. If you provide the opt-out, then the logistics are how to work out a weekly testing requirement. If you do not provide the opt-out and if you go with processing the medical exemptions and the religious exemptions, then you have the logistics on the front end of HR having to handle and process all of those and engage in that interactive process with the staff members who request the exemptions. So those are like the kind of the basic beginning portions of the conversation. And then I know we have Dr. Schumacher here this evening to kind of help answer some questions. And so what I think I'll do is I'll start with my initial question for Dr. Schumacher, and then we can just kind of work our way around the table and engage that way. And so my starting question is that we have various rates of vaccination for different categories of employees, and I'd kind of like to open up with the background information on that. What information, like how do we have it? I think it's from last spring, so that we can have a general idea of what it is that we're looking at with regards to vaccination rates of our employees.
Yeah, good question. So in looking back at the spring, we had a pretty accurate view of how many of our employees got vaccinated because we were doing a lot of those clinics on site, and then clearly great communication with JCDHE. So all employees, about 81%. Okay, so that would be certified, classified, all across the board. If you're to break it down by classified subgroups, paras were at 55%, food service 72%, custodians 58%, and O&M 52%. We tried to pull out additionally some information for our contracted employees as well, and so that would include DS bus, substitutes, and then special education assisted services. These are a little bit harder. The accuracy is not as good as our employee numbers. Subs, the best estimation we have is 25%. DS bus, 12%, and assisted, 45%.
Okay. I think the only other category of employee I can think of would be like district resource officers or the school resource officers that we contract with the municipalities. Do we have an idea there or no?
I don't have that in front of me, but we can try to find that for you.
And the reason we don't have that, they were one of the very first groups that went through, that were available, and they went through the sheriff's department for their vaccination. So because they didn't get them with us, we don't have those records.
Gotcha. Thank you. So I will turn it to Ms. Goodburn to see if she has some questions at this time.
I don't at this time. Okay. I don't at this time.
Ms. Embry?
I guess maybe just from an HR perspective, my question would be, are there certain costs that are being borne on our HR side right now that would potentially go away? Like, are we having a lot of teachers that are having hospitalizations or medical expenses? Like, is COVID impacting our health insurance costs in any way, or are there costs that would not be borne if we had a fully vaccinated workforce?
Not that I can directly point to right now. I think, as far as insurance costs, we might see that on the back end, when we go out to bid, don't go out to bid, but when Blue Cross provides us our rates for the upcoming school year. It wasn't impactful this last time. As far as day-to-day, we're not seeing a huge uptick of COVID-related absences. So I can't think of any direct costs that might be lost through a vaccine requirement.
Are we having right now, sorry, I have a follow-up question. I know, and Dr. Schumacher, please correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong, but
Okay.
I know, if I'm remembering right, last school year, we were able to offer like an extended leave for any employee that had to quarantine, and that was part of some federal funding we received, or a federal policy that was in place. I saw
Yeah,
your
so
eyebrows
just
go
a
up.
pretty major correction. So it was a mandate by the
Okay.
federal government to provide that extended leave, but it was unfunded.
Okay,
And so we incurred that cost, and there was a substantial cost that maybe Mr. Knapp can help me with the exact numbers, but yet there was a federal mandate that expired on December 31st of last year.
and that is now gone because it is no longer mandated.
That is correct.
We are not providing it. Are we having any issues with employees having COVID cases or breakthrough COVID cases and needing to take leave, and we're not able to?
There's been
Offer
some
it.
breakthrough cases and some people who've had to take leave, but we've worked with them to try to mitigate the impacts of that. And thankfully, the majority of them have had the leave to use. And so there hasn't been any harm financially done.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
Ms. Borkman?
Thank you. If we require vaccinations for all staff, what kind of impact do you think that this will have on our classified staff, for example, our paras, our lunchroom staff, so on and so forth?
Well, if you take the breakdown of vaccinations, it appears as though this certified staff is a pretty high vaccinated rate. We're still going to have some certified staff that aren't happy with this requirement, right? But I have huge fears in regards to our classified staff. We're already about 250 employees short in the classified area. And I personally am very fearful that it would be very difficult for us to continue. Well, we would continue with maybe a larger staffing problem, and I'm very concerned about that if we were to implement this.
So just so I understand you correctly, if we implement some type of a required vaccination for our staff, all staff, what kind of impact do you think that that will have on kids in classrooms?
Without question, I think it will. I mean, we're already having an impact due to COVID, I believe, and just staffing. I think requiring the vaccine would just compound that problem, and I do think it would directly impact instruction. And not just instruction, but services. I mean, buses, cafeteria, so not just the classroom, but all the services that we provide to kids outside of instruction.
Thank you, that's very helpful. I appreciate it.
Reverend Guy?
First of all, just want to say I'm grateful to this board for having this conversation. It's never fun or easy being one of the first boards willing to have a conversation in public like this, and we are one of the first ones in Kansas who's even having this conversation. So, and the reason, at least from my perspective, the reason we're having it is because we want to do everything we possibly can to keep our students and our staff safe. I mean, and that's what we've talked about with masking requirements this year. We want our students in the buildings. We want them safe. We want our staff protected too, and that's why it's worth having this conversation. But there are all of these other considerations that have already been brought up. So I guess my question, and I don't know, Dr. Shoemaker, if this is something you can even answer yet, but there are a few other districts in the nation who have talked about this or even implemented it. Do we have any data back from any of them on what kind of implications it's had on their workforce?
I don't have any specifics, but I do know there's some anecdotal data that would say that there is some loss of employees if you implement something like this. So, you know, with a vaccination rate of around 83% for all of our employees, with a lower level for most of our classified employees. And then if you take into account our contracted employees, which is much lower, from a human resource standpoint, I would agree with Dr. Hubbard. I would have a concern that we would potentially lose some of our staff.
Mr. Stratton?
So a couple of questions. I'll see if I can put them all in one. I want to preface this by saying, obviously, the health of all of our staff and our students in the building is at the top. From there, to me, it's a decision tree. And then we have to take in all these different pieces of information as best we can and make some very difficult decisions as a school board. Mine starts to gravitate towards realities of finances, both current and whatever we possibly could project over into the future. And so we've had the ability to utilize some federal dollars in order to fill some gaps and make some decisions that helped us move through last year, this year, into next year. I guess my question is, back to the administrative team, when we try to look out 2 and 3 years from now, what would be some of the ramifications of a decision to require the vaccinations? The answers to some of the previous questions were about staff turnover, higher staff turnover. We heard about the 250 openings for classified. I guess my other concern is we're down in the number of students, and the way the formula works, it might not hit us immediately, but it might hit us in the next couple of years. That's a decrease in funds too. So all of that data going together, I guess what I'm asking back to the administrative team is how do we try to put all those in the proper priority in order to figure out cause and effect? And I'll turn to Dr. Hubbard, and you can either say, yeah, I can help with that answer, or I have no idea what you just asked.
So I think the simple question is, 3 years down the road when enrollment may or may not come back to where we were and all the federal funds are gone, what then, right? Is that your question? So Russ and I have these conversations regularly. I am very worried about that, and we've talked publicly about ESSER dollars, and we added, I believe, 52 or 54 positions out of ESSER $2. They will continue with ESSER $3, so we have at least a couple years here with all those added positions, but it could really be scary 3 years down the road for the superintendent and board at that time to be making decisions about that, and no one ever wants to take positions away, but as you all know, most of our budget is staff, and I think that's the only way out of this down the road. So I think the short answer is I think that's something we should be very concerned about. I think, too, that requiring a vaccine will cost us money. There's no two ways about that, whether we did an opt-out or not an opt-out. We will have to have, if we have an opt-out, there's cost with testing. While right now that is provided, that we have some grant funding that we would be able to do that, but we anticipate that grant funding will run out. And then who pays for the testing? Who pays for the time that it takes staff to do that? Who pays for it? That's a lot of administration in the HR team that's not happening now, that will have to happen. And then if you go the other route where there's not an opt-out, then we are processing ADA forms, again, requiring additional staff that right now we don't have the manpower to do that without probably hiring somebody to do that. So I worry about adding an additional requirement that will cost us money down the road in addition to all of the other things that you just mentioned. Mike, would you add anything, or Russ?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Dr. Sinclair?
Part of this conversation makes me think about the risk mitigation practices that we have in place. And so we have a very layered approach to minimizing spread in our schools. It includes a number of different components. And so putting the question maybe back to you, Dr. Hubbard, or to any board members, I'm just thinking about from what I understand, vaccinations and masks are two of the most critical components of any strategy. So have there been discussions about what that looks like if we don't have a vaccine requirement? What does that does that change what impact does that have on the role of masking and maybe the duration of which we may be looking at masking without a vaccine requirement?
I wish I had a crystal ball to answer that, but right now the CDC would say whether you're vaccinated or not, you should be masked, right? So even if we had everybody vaccinated right now, mask would not be going away. So I don't know that I can answer that. We will continue to work with the health department, both Johnson County, Kansas Health Department, reviewing CDC guidelines, all the things that we've looked at up to this point in regards to our mitigation plan. I think the one thing that I would say, and there's a chart floating right now, if you haven't seen it, of all the Johnson County schools to date since school started on cases. And we're all pretty much riding pretty much the same line. And then you see Spring Hill that has a huge infection rate compared to the other 5 schools in the county, and they are not masking at their high school. And so I think that chart alone tells us that the mitigation plan is working. If you look at our dashboard, we've been very consistent since the day school started, so it's pretty minimal in general. So again, waiting on recommendations from our health experts. I am not a health expert, so I have to take the recommendation of those teams that we work with. But I can't answer if everyone was vaccinated when masks would go away right now.
Can I ask a follow-up question then? So taking that, thank you for that. Taking that scenario to I'm thinking of students with disabilities in particular who might be in resource rooms and and having educational support from paraprofessionals. How are we crosswalking that when there are times when those students might not be wearing a mask, or there's unmasking to help with speech therapy or those kinds of things? Is that an issue yet? Is that?
I would say we probably, I don't know that I can answer about if we have more positive cases in those classrooms or not, but I definitely know we have more quarantine in those areas because of students and staff not masking.
Thank you.
So I think the issue, when I think about it, I'm concerned about the 55% rate of vaccinated paras, and then that potentially being with our highest risk student population, who would potentially be the students who, for whatever reason, wouldn't be able to mask, whether it be because they aren't able to physically remove their mask if they need to, or for whatever reason. And so the concern being, how do we keep those students safe, keep our staff safe, and provide that best protection, and then couple that with the risk of potentially losing paras if there was a requirement. And I think part of the contribution to that is that our other sister districts in the county, just within the last month, have upped their para pay. So our base, I think, for para pay is it $13 an hour? Is that what our base is?
Just over.
$13.27.
$13.27. And then, so I think in Olathe and Blue Valley, is that $15 an hour now?
Just Olathe.
Just Olathe. And then in KCK, is it $15 an hour?
Yes.
So we have a situation in which we have very close adjacent districts where their para base pay is more than ours. And if we did do some sort of requirement, that could be a trigger to say, well, I don't want to participate in this requirement, and I could go somewhere else and make more money. So there's 2 factors in play here, and one is the salary schedule for classified folks. So I know I had the question, what would it take to move us to that base $15 an hour cost-wise? And I think you guys ran the numbers for just moving the base to 15, not adjusting the entirety of the salary schedule. And so moving the base to 15, the cost for that was?
Yeah, so to move the base to 15 and then to our center-based programs to $16.25, which again is staying very competitive, it would cost $375,000 annually.
And that does not include moving the whole salary schedule. So if you're with us right now and you've been with us for years and you're making $15 an hour, and if we were to raise entry salaries to $15 an hour, you might be somewhat displeased to see that you've been with the district for a significant amount of time and your pay is now the equivalent as if you were just starting. So do we have like a rough guesstimate of what it might be if we were to move the entirety of that salary schedule?
We haven't done that calculation, but it'd be considerably more than $375,000.
So I think considerably more is for sure. I don't know if we if I guess at $1 million, am I undershooting? Am I overshooting?
You're probably pretty close. If we were to move all groups on the general schedule, because there's more than just paras that are on there. So if you're just talking about paras, it'd be quite a bit less than that, but the whole schedule would be a little bit over $1 million.
And that's year over year because it's a salary
That's year over
investment.
year, yes. A little bit of clarity, though, on the $375,000 that we did work up, those would be gone, all pairs would be booming up a grade. So they would, even those that would get, every one of them would get an increase, but those would be the smallest, would be about a 1.5% on top of what they just received in our normal annual raise that we just got.
And
So it's focused more on, I'm sorry, it's
Oh, go ahead.
focused more on that's on step 1, 2, and 3 to get that entry-level position up to try to attract those positions.
I mean, because to be frank, we're at risk of potentially losing people right now without doing anything else due to where the competition is at, basically. I mean, we did insert additional funds into that salary schedule. I feel like it was
I think the last 2
8
years
months
we
ago?
have.
It was
It was
within
like-
the last year.
It was like 8 months ago, maybe.
Yes.
There's been a COVID time is longer time, but since that infusion, there has been jumps just locally.
Yeah, and it's really been Olathe in our area that really did the big jump, and they were way behind us. So you're correct. I mean, we're all competing for the same people, and so they did it for a purpose, to potentially out-recruit us. So that is correct.
And we designated our ESSER dollars for a lot of things, one of which was lowering class sizes at the elementary level, and then we got the additional math teachers at the secondary level, counselors, social workers, but it's my understanding that our sister districts are using some ESSER dollars for sign-on bonuses as well. Is that accurate? Do you know? Is that ESSER or is it something else? But our sister districts have a $700 sign-on bonus?
They're doing some sign-on bonuses. I don't know if they're using ESSER funds or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think those are the end of my money questions. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Ms. Goodburn to see if she has any follow-ups.
So Dr. Hubbard alluded to it and kind of spoke about it, but the costs of testing. Can you talk about the costs of testing? And I know that we have a grant, but do we know how much that would cost if the grant goes away and what kind of money we're talking about?
Yeah, so right now we use MOD labs to do our site-based testing for our employees, kids, and then any employees, immediate family members. There's really 3 different ways in which a school district in Kansas could approach testing, weekly testing. One would be community testing, where you'd have the employee go out and do the testing themselves and report back their status or their negative or positive test. That would be a very little cost or maybe no cost to the district. So long as MOD maintains their ability to service us, and so long as the grant money holds out, it's free. I think it's predictable that it will not hold out. It won't last. If it doesn't last, it will start to cost the district about about $63,000 per week to do MOD testing. And that would be associated to additional staffing. We would have to hire additional staff to do that. The other opportunity would be Binax testing, and that is through the state as well. The cost per test there would be about $4,500 per week. And then some additional FTE staffing as well.
And that money would come out of where?
Operating.
Operating fund?
Well,
Or we'd have to adjust ESSER funds,
yeah,
I
it would
suppose.
meet the guidelines to use ESSER, but we've already have kind of allocated all our ESSER too, so we'd have to find somewhere to take that from.
We'd
pay
have to
for
find
that.
it in ESSER 3 or general fund.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Embry, do you have any furthers?
I mean, I want to play a little bit with the hypothetical that we were in a better position on staffing. And I want to acknowledge that I think were we in a better position staffing, this would feel like a really different conversation, because at the end of the day, while none of us are epidemiologists, we've sure heard from a lot of them in the last year and a half. And time again, what we have heard is that one of the best things we can do for students to reduce their risk of COVID is to have a blanket of adults around them who are vaccinated. So when I think about an immunocompromised child who is not a good mask wearer, who is going through a lunch line with a food service worker who is not vaccinated, I think that looks like a pretty high-risk interaction for that child. And were we in a different position on staffing, I would love to see us be able to figure out how to have more vaccinated adults around our students. I think that is the best and safest thing for them. I want to start talking about off-ramps for these masks, and I think we can't really start having that conversation until we feel like we have higher vaccination levels in our community. And anything that this board and this district can do to help us get to that place feels to me like a good thing. So I want to put that out there as my personal preference. I also want to acknowledge that all these staffing constraints are real. They're all there and they're all real. But if we were to look at this from sort of a health perspective and doing the best thing we can for the health of our students, I think doing whether it's a carrot or a stick or a nudge or a push, whatever we could be doing to encouraging vaccinations is one of the best things we could be doing right now, because I know no one up here wants to have this mask fight every August. And what we need to do to get to that spot is just having more vaccination in our community and lower prevalence of COVID.
Vaccination, they can still spread it.
We're in the middle of a conversation.
Sorry.
If you continue to disrupt us, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We have a right to conduct business at this juncture.
So that's my opinion right now is I'm happy to entertain a conversation of what we need to do on staffing. I think that's a worthwhile conversation to be having with or without a conversation on vaccines, but I feel like we're letting the two things overlap in a way that's not allowing us to zero in on the particular issues.
Thank you, Ms. Embry.
I have a related follow-up question.
You want to follow up?
Well,
Yeah. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Hubbard, can you remind me about the relationship between masking and contact tracing responsibilities or staffing and the amount of time students may or may not stay in school? Just how those three pieces connect, particularly the budget part of contact tracing.
I cannot tell you the budget part. Dr. Ziegler, can you join us? How many people we have contact tracing, is that your question?
So if I'm just trying to think about the responsibility of contact tracing and the relationship to masking, those two pieces, right? Because we are masking, more kids and staff are able to stay. Right?
Absolutely.
They're not excluded, and the contact tracing requirements, well, I guess we don't really.
It's when kids are unmasked is when quarantine is primarily recommended by the county health department.
Okay, so they either, or less. And so is there a fiscal responsibility with the masking, if masking is optional, is there more of a fiscal requirement for contact tracing on districts?
Yes. If the more kids that are unmasked, the more contact tracers we would need.
I think you might be remembering, Mary, early on, the health department said that if we had a requirement for masking K-6, that they would handle all the contact tracing for the district.
But that's not happening.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate that.
I'm going to ask Dr. Ziegler to.
We are cooperating, and that was part of our plan with the health department when they asked us to cooperate with the numbers in the county. It has become a laborious task, and so we have a nursing team of 5 that currently are supported through some of the grant funds this year to provide some of that support. And they serve as liaisons between the schools, between the teachers, the principals, and the school nurses, and the county health department when we do have positive case and help identifying close exposures.
Okay, thank you. And I had one other piece that was related to some of your questions.
Go ahead, Dr. Sinclair.
Thank you. It's in sync with that fiscal note. So you were talking about the relationship between our classified staff and the salary schedule that we have, and what our surrounding districts are doing in competition to fill, everyone trying to fill their 200, 250 open slots. So that's a fiscal note that would carry forward into that, along with Mr. Stratton, the pieces you were bringing up about the other 54 that we have in place. So that's, I'm just trying to keep in my head all those different pieces for the competition for dollars when we do lose our federal funding, and how we prioritize all those. But that's, right, that would be another line that we would need to sustain if we were to increase those salaries in order to be competitive.
Correct, and the one that we haven't talked about in addition to those, which you just brought up, is the COVID nurses that we currently are staffing as well, which I believe we have 5 right now still. Okay. That we are paying salary on to contact trace.
Well, and I wasn't suggesting that we would increase classified salary with SR dollars. That would have to be.
Well, it would come out of, eventually would hit our budget.
Yeah, that would have to be aberrational, because it would, I'm guessing that SR dollars don't qualify to cover salary increases for your classified staff.
Well, we would have to sustain it.
Yeah,
Even if you could, you would have to sustain it long-term.
Yeah.
Which would be the general fund.
And SR3 is it. There's no indication that there would be another one, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to
I haven't heard
anybody's knowledge.
anything beyond
I've
SR3.
heard nothing other than SR3 is it.
I haven't either.
Ms. Borgman.
Thank you.
I guess I'm kind of a bottom line kind of gal. And, the facts are the facts. The data is what it is. Our classified staff is a very critical part of our district infrastructure. We're worn thin. We can't afford to lose our classified staff. I think pushing this issue right now with the situation that we're currently in is not in the best interest of all of our students. I don't have a question other than, we could sit up here and ask, hundreds of questions based on this, which I appreciate. Transparency is important. It's important that our community understands everything that's going into this. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is we have 250 open positions. Our teachers are worn thin. I get calls from teachers on a regular basis on Fridays that are just, they're worn thin. They're exhausted because they don't have the classified staff that they need to run the classroom like they need to, right? And so, this is not the right time for this. We can't, in the best interest of all of our students, pushing this right now is not for the overall health of our district.
And I think it's important that we have the conversation publicly
100%.
So that the public understands
Absolutely, yes.
what the factors are that are happening as these things are contemplated.
Absolutely, could not agree more. And I appreciate the opportunity to discuss it. Thank you.
Reverend Guy? Mr. Stratton?
So back to my decision tree. The other one that we've experienced over the last 18 months is the role at the local level, the role at the county, the state, federal. Where do these next decisions come from as it relates to the federal being handed down? There were some federal requirements that were put in place recently. Do we have any interpretation on how that affects state and local bodies?
In regards to vaccine,
Yeah,
the federal decision, the recent federal decision does not apply to public schools. So we will not, as of right now, we will not have a vaccine requirement based on the Biden administration federal requirement.
Dr. Sinclair?
I have no further questions, but I appreciate having the discussion. Thank you.
I don't think I have further questions. So I know that the district leadership team is kind of wanting some guidance on whether or not they should continue to explore this, have discussions with Shawnee Mission NEA to see where they would fall on this. So I think we just need to be able to provide whether or not we want to continue to have the administrative team look into what the options are so we can be informed about that. I think we got a pretty clear indication where Jamie sits on that. But I would just ask to have the rest of the board, do we want to have some additional information on this? Do we want to put a pause on this conversation for now? It's not a vote, it's just we need to be able to have some sort of consensus so that they know what they're doing with their time on this issue. I would like to get additional information, at least on what it costs to be competitive on the salary schedule with the classified staff, moving that all the way up, not just bumping the entry, but I want to know what the hard number is on that, because I feel like that's going to be an issue one way or the other with everything. And I
For
would
all classes, not just paras, correct?
Correct, for all
Okay.
classes, not just paras, but then maybe break it down to paras so that we have an understanding there. Where is the predominant lack of staff right now? Like, are we predominantly short paras? Are we predominantly short nutrition? Is it kind of dispersed?
Spread pretty equally across paras, food service, and O&M. It's pretty
And
equal.
so,
Substitutes.
and it was 55% of vaccination rate for paras, and then what was the nutrition services staff in?
72.
72%. So the lowest rate right now is in the para class.
O&M,
O&M, okay. But that's operations and maintenance, they're not necessarily interacting directly with students or even with like vulnerable students.
Custodians. could be.
Custodians,
if you threw in our contracted services, they would be the lowest. So
okay. And that includes Kelly subs?
Kelly subs, DS bus, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, do we want to get additional information? We can do the salary stuff in addition, but do we want to have the district leadership team talk to NEA, or do we want to put pause on this for now? I wouldn't mind continuing the conversation just so that we've fleshed it out, but I respect the consensus of the body as a whole if we decide we don't want to do that. Go ahead, Mr. Stratton.
I don't see any reason to put a proposal forward from the board. From my perspective, I defer to the staff. If at any point now or in the future they want to bring a recommendation back to us, I defer to that.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm comfortable pausing it at this time. I guess I shouldn't use the word comfortable. So many of these decisions we've had to make over the last 2 years have been very uncomfortable. Even when I feel like we made the right decision, it's been really tough, and there are things about it that bother me. And so this is one that bothers me a little bit, but I think taking all of the factors in, I'm okay pausing this conversation for now.
Okay.
I would tend to agree with Ms. Borgman, Reverend Guy, and Mr. Stratton, pausing the conversation.
Okay. Well, I think that's,
Yep, that gives me some direction, so
Yeah.
we'll just hold on this information. We'll continue to gather information that comes to us, and if the point comes where we feel like we need to make that recommendation, we will. Or if you all get to a position you want us to look further, you can let us know that.
Can I ask a clarifying question? If we will be able to do something, because I'm as concerned about, I'm hearing the same things Jamie is, of people calling on Fridays, they're overwhelmed, there's not enough people. I mean, I know there's all sorts of plans, contingency plans upon plans for when we're short-staffed. What do we need to do to get that better? Like, are there investments we need to be making now? I think I'm as concerned about that as anything of what we need to do on the staffing side.
Talking about subs or?
All of it. It
all of
sounds
it?
like we're short people in the kitchen, we're short people for subs, we're just short.
Yeah, it sounds like an excuse, and maybe it is a little bit, but we're not the only, organization that's feeling this. It's a pandemic issue. But we're out there recruiting. I mean, just last week, Dr. Jones, our new director of classified, was out at Arrowhead Stadium recruiting, and he says they came across 50 to 60 great employees that we're going to follow up on. We were the only school district out there. So we're doing all kinds of things to help recruit. We're also having conversations with Kelly around incentives, things like that, to try to get more subs into our classrooms as well. So we continue to look. It's tough.
Yeah, I guess my question is partially what Heather was asking about, of like, just as long as we're as competitive as we can be with pay, and if it's sign-on bonuses, I don't know what other districts are doing. I know that this is happening all over the country in school districts, but I just want to make sure it's not happening any worse in Shawnee Mission, because we're behind the curve relative to other districts on any of these compensation issues.
And I would tell you that even the other districts with higher salaries are still facing significant shortages. So I'm not sure that I think money will help it, but I don't think it's going to fix it.
So I would concur on the pausing for any additional information. The only piece I think that would be helpful to know is where some of our employees are on, for example, if NEA Shawnee Mission has a position on requirements, would be helpful to know.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate the conversation tonight. I think it's useful for everybody to hear what the factors are that are going into the decision-making process, and I appreciate the board members for engaging and having the conversation. I think it was a worthwhile one. So with that, we are going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Thank you so much, Dr. Schumacher and Dr. Ziegler. And this is item 4.1, approval of consent items. Unless there is a motion from anyone to remove an item from consent, I will seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move
So-
approval, Hembry?
Second, Goodburn?
So that was a motion from Ms. Hembry and a second from Ms. Goodburn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we will move on to our action items. Item 7.1 is the approval of renewing the medical insurance program with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City. What I can do is just get a motion in a second, and then if anyone has any questions for Dr. Hubbard, we can ask those questions prior to our vote.
So move Borgman.
Thank you, Ms. Borkman. Is there a second?
Second, Guy?
Thank you, Reverend Guy. Are there any questions for Dr. Hubbard on this item? Are you waving at me, Jamie?
Oh, no, a fly.
Okay.
I know, it's like this slow fly working.
I'm trying to pay attention, but I saw the flashing
Good
colors.
peripheral vision.
Okay, if there are no questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, that item passes unanimously. We'll do the same for approval of leave and benefits manual for administrators.
Move approval, Goodburn?
Thank you, Ms. Goodburn. Is there a second?
Second, Sinclair?
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions, but I'm just going to ask Dr. Hubbard. We have not voted on this in my time on the board, but this leave and benefits manual has kind of been around and people have referred to it, so we decided to update it, make sure it was solid, and codify it so that it was a current document. And if you could just speak a couple sentences to that, I think that'd be appreciated.
Absolutely, and it has not been board approved in this 7 years that I've been here either, but it has been a document that we constantly refer to, and so we had bits and pieces of it in different places, and so we just wanted to get it all in one place. We thought it'd be a great document to be able to hand to new administrators to say, this is how vacation works, this is how boom, boom, boom works throughout your contract. So yes, it's new to the board, I believe.
Okay.
At least in my experience in Shawnee Mission.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That item passes unanimously. We now have item 7.3, which Mr. Knapp spoke to, the approval to accept the settlement for the February 2021 natural gas invoice. I'll seek a motion to approve and a second.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair, for the second. Were there any follow-up questions for Mr. Knapp after he discussed that?
My understanding is that there's going to be some exploration in how to structure contracts in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, we asked James to put together a request for proposal, and it would be maybe a 45-day to 60-day time period to get that back.
Yeah. It's
So he's going to start.
hard to be efficient,
He's gonna-
manage cost and risk all at the same time. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
Looking into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, that also passes unanimously. Item 7.4, approval of the district storage arrays refresh. I'll seek a motion to approve.
So move, Goodburn.
Thank you, Ms. Goodburn. Is there a second?
Second, Sinclair?
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair. Dr. Hubbard, do you want to just give a quick sentence so that the folks watching at home know what this is?
I would ask Mr. Lane to come to the podium.
Okay.
Good evening. So a few years back, we went through and put together a couple of capital outlay refresh plans. One of them had to do with student devices and endpoints, and the other plan has to do with our infrastructure, so data infrastructure, things like that, things that exist in the data center, in our disaster recovery site, so on and so forth. much of that equipment is paid for, like I said, out of the capital outlay plan. This is a refresh of some technology that sits in the data center that stores the vast majority of the district's critical data. And we keep it in two locations. So we have a what we call a hot production, and then we have a warm DR. So we have one that is working in the data center here. We have one that is on active standby in the disaster recovery site. And these are arrays. They are, so we look back a little ways, we used to use a lot of what was called direct attached storage. Think about direct attached storage as if it's the hard drive in your computer. The storage array is storage that is available to a multitude of different computers and servers, so that if we ever needed to replace a server, we don't have to be down. We don't have to have a system that is out, or we don't have to worry about losing data or whatever like that. The data remains intact. We can just replace the server and go on about our business. And so these arrays, they do a lot of work every single day. We have them on a regular refresh cycle, and that's the item that's in front of you tonight, is those storage arrays.
Thank you so much. Are there any follow-up questions here? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our final item on the action items for this evening is the approval of Welcoming Week, the 2021 Proclamation. I'm going to get a motion in a second, and then Ms. Hembry is going to read the proclamation for us before we vote.
Move to approve, Stratton.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Is there a second?
Second, Guy?
Thank you, Reverend Guy, and I'll turn it to you, Ms. Hembry.
Sure. Welcoming Week Proclamation. The KC Chamber and members of Welcoming KC are working to make Kansas City a designated welcoming city. We know by using all the assets across our entire community, we can welcome immigrants, refugees, and other newcomers to grow the region's globally competitive workforce. The Shawnee Mission School District's success depends on making sure that all students feel welcome here. Today, new students are a vital part of our community, bringing fresh perspectives and new ideas, contributing to the vibrant diversity that we all value. This week, we honor that spirit of unity that is bringing neighbors together across the district. This is consistent with the beliefs embedded in the Shawnee Mission School District's strategic plan. We believe that every individual has inherent worth and deserves to be valued and celebrated. We believe that a community's strength is derived from its diversity. We believe that respecting a community's diversity and each individual's dignity demands equitable access. Regardless of where we are born or what we look like, we are united in our efforts to build a stronger district. By recognizing the contributions that we all make to create a vibrant culture and a growing economy, we make our community more prosperous and more inclusive to all who call it home. During Welcoming Week, the Board of Education invites all students and staff to renew our commitment to core American values and take action in the spirit of creating welcoming and inclusive communities. By working together, we can achieve greater prosperity and make our district the kind of place where diverse people from around the world feel valued and want to put down roots. Now, therefore, the Shawnee Mission Board of Education proclaims the week of September 27th, 2021 as Welcoming KC Week to support the community's efforts. We call upon the people of Shawnee Mission to join together to build stronger communities across Kansas.
Thank you, Ms. Hembry. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you again for bringing that. And we will move on to comments from board members, and we'll just start with Ms. Borgman.
Yes, I just want to say this is Shawnee Mission Northwest's homecoming week, and it's just so fun to see kids so excited, and really it just builds community, especially, you know, not having this experience due to COVID. So, you know, after this meeting, I'm rushing to help build the soccer float, and it's just fun to see kids come together again and work together as one and strengthen relationships. And I know other Shawnee Mission East had its homecoming last week, I believe, and it's just fun to see the district really doing the things that help build us as one and build, you know, our kids as a community, and I'll never take it for granted ever again. So thanks.
Thank you. Reverend Guy?
I just want to once again thank the board for our conversation tonight, especially about vaccines. We've had lots of difficult conversations, and they're never any fun, but I respect all of my colleagues up here, and I appreciate the staff, the administrators who work so hard to get us the information we want so that we can make informed decisions. So I just want to say thank you again to all of you for the conversation tonight and to all of you who provided that information so we could have that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton.
Nothing tonight.
Dr. Sinclair?
I would like to reflect on a couple items in the consent agenda, the 511 and 512 with our East band looking to perform in London and the North Orchestra in Chicago. And I just wanted to acknowledge, I know a lot of work goes into planning those kinds of trips and a lot of financial investments, and I appreciate the work of those folks, those parents, and instructional leaders balancing the need to create those opportunities as well as planning for COVID. When that hit, we had a lot of kiddos who weren't able to capitalize on their trips, and so I appreciate the thoughtfulness in trying to balance those decisions. And I also wanted to note that the Shawnee Mission East Fund fundraiser is around the corner. That's it. Thank you.
So I just want to take an opportunity to directly thank Shelby Reback, who's I don't think any longer in the room, and Dr. Ziegler. So at our last board meeting, I unfortunately missed it due to a severe allergic reaction to something I did not know I was that allergic to. And had it happened at home, I would have likely taken a Benadryl and waited for the Benadryl to kick in. And unfortunately, I would not have had the resources available to make sure I was okay. And Shelby did have the resources, just like all of our school nurses do. And it really just made me so appreciative of our nursing staff, of everything that they have done to keep us all safe and healthy for the last year and a half. And then to have them at the ready and to spring into action, it really makes me feel good about who we've trusted the health and safety of our kids to with regards to our nursing staff. And Shelby was just a rock star, and so I'm just so appreciative. And I'm thank you to the board for soldiering on without me. Sorry about that. I think it's the only meeting I've missed. But I have been very, very appreciative the last couple weeks. And I'm very thankful that they were there to assist. So I just wanted to be able to give them that shout out from the dais. So thank you. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Goodburn.
I just wanted to say I was really excited to see the new Bison logo tonight. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you to everyone for their hard work in getting that done, and I can't wait to put it on t-shirts.
They are so excited.
I just wanted to give a short shout out to our principals. I feel like we have Teacher Appreciation Week and we have so many other wonderful appreciation weeks, but I don't know that we have a Principal Appreciation Week. And I had the opportunity the last couple weeks to tour some schools with Dr. Atha and Dr. Stubblefield. And while I was impressed time and time again by all of our educators, of course, our principals are getting so creative to make lunchtime work all over this district. And I cannot even tell you, it was desks on the stage and it was desks in the hallway and it was desks as far as the eye could see so they could keep our kids about 6 feet apart and allow them to enjoy lunch. And that kind of creativity, I think, especially when parents can't get into the building, it's invisible, but I want to just say how grateful I am that people are being so creative to keep kids in school and safe, especially our principals right now.
Real quickly, I will add, just since you brought it up, but October is Principal Appreciation Month. Good. So it would be a great opportunity for you to appreciate your principals, everybody listening in the month of October.
That concludes our meeting for this evening. Our next regular meeting is on October 25th, 2021. Thank you for attending this tonight, and there is no further business after the meeting. Thank you.